Welcome everybody to this Sunday's Zeta Global Radio. Lainie, Sevante, Wulkan here. And I am thrilled about this topic today. Apparently it's an important one. We've tried a couple times to get this going technically. So third time's a charm, as we're saying, and I'm excited. So must be powerful work, powerful energies at play here. And we are going to share all about what we're talking about here today, the world of archetypes. Consider this an adventure. Consider this a deep dive into exploring the depths of who we already are, mind, body, and soul, our humanness, our spirituality. It's so much more, and the one who's going to be our way shower to guide us along for all of you to understand further how far back the concept, the cultural heritage of archetypes go, is Teressena Bakens, who's been here on the show before. She's been here actually many times. She's the author, along with her husband Martin, on the Fifth Tarot, of course, which I'm a certified Fifth Tarot reader. She'll be here in a couple weeks in Southwest Florida for her Playshop immersion we can't wait to be part of, Awakening Our Archetypes. So archetypes are on our mind. Let's talk about it so they are on yours too. Welcome back to the show, Teressena. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, Lainie. It's so wonderful to be here and looking forward to coming next weekend for the tarot immersion.
Yep, it's coming up, and I love the fact that you are a almost regular here on the show. There's always so much topics because you have such a vast background. And I think before we even dive into the world of archetypes, maybe just let them know the world of yours, because you navigate many different archetypes yourself, just in the many different ways you help humanity. So maybe just give a snapshot for people who are just getting to know who you are, and then we will bring it forward with what archetypes are all about.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things, and we all have it, I know that it just happens to be perhaps in my awareness a little more, is the intuitive approach to our journey through life. And I think through my intuition as I work with it, it has led me on this journey that has unfolded in really quite a magical way. Not without hardship necessarily, but this is the story kind of when we're talking about archetypes, sort of the hero's journey facing these trials and challenges and tribulations, and how it transforms a person's life. And so in my background, through a series of events, it has led me on this rather shamanic path. As a medicine person, I've had the wonderful opportunity to learn from Native American, Mayan, Peruvian medicine people. And so I am a wisdom keeper, a teacher, ceremonial leader, healer, and as Lainie mentioned, working with the tarot, which ties in so beautifully with what we are talking about today as archetypes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, then let's take a moment here to everyone sit back. You don't have to take notes. You just have to grab what we're going to share here today of what works for you, what answers those questions, what inspires you to know more, and allow us to share all sorts of good wisdom, starting off with what does the word archetype mean, if there's even a textbook reading, and let's share that, and then we can bring maybe scientific, psychological perspectives, and then we can bring the esoteric in, because they all go hand in hand.
Absolutely, Lainie, and that's a wonderful description because they are so multi-layered. And that's, I think, why sometimes it's a little hard to put it in the form of a definition, and yet we know it. Like we resonate. It's like once we kind of connect with it, we're like, yeah, So it's a primordial structural element. Sometimes it's an image. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes it's personified as a person or a deity. But it's this primordial essence that resides deep within our subconscious, and it's encoded in our DNA. And it's this sort of ideal example or model that things are patterned after. It's a universal symbol or a character, maybe a character that is a collective of a number of traits. For example, it might be like a warrior or a priestess. It's a general term that applies to, it gives an identification to us for perhaps courage or strength or creativity or the power of the human spirit to transcend. And so they come forward as images or ideas. They're instinctive to our nature, and they compel us on our journey.
And they've been there a long time because they've been there through many different cultures, thousands and thousands. You go back to the word Greek. I think archetype came from the Greek origin, if I'm not mistaken. And so it goes way back. And of course, there's Greek mythology, tons and tons of stories. And of course, you're talking about Homer in the Iliad and the true hero's journey. So this goes way back in terms of this, I almost like to say a system, but this belief in, like you're saying, almost DNA level, like we're born that way. When you go back to those stories that are now being made into movies, those are really archetypes of what we've all had, and now we are them too, just modern day generation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think particularly the arts, whether it's the troubadours of older times or musicians writing, the ballads that are written, the songs that convey things, paintings, literature, filmmakers, the stories that they tell, there's a surface level of the narrative, but underneath that are these archetypes, and that's why we resonate so much with them.
You actually just transported me back to my earlier days growing up in LA, and the most popular club was the Troubadour. And now I have a completely different take on why that was such a fitting name, because the most famous people have played there before, because it is tapping into those arts. And for someone like me who is very drawn to the Hindu deities and murtis and I guess archetypes, and some call them gods. I think about Saraswati, the goddess of arts, but that's the same thing. She is like that troubadour, or what you're saying is she represents the archetype of that energy, right? It's representation of an energy?
Absolutely. And so it's called, that energy, that essence, that archetype is called Saraswati in the Hindu tradition. You would call her Venus in mythology, in Greek mythology, or it might be Mother Ixchel, the creatress energy in the Mayan tradition. So different civilizations, different cultures, for us to identify, give it a name. But it's the essence, the primordial essence that underlies that is really what the archetype is.
So taking that we went very broad and realizing that this is vast and very ancient, but let's talk about some of our modern day thought leaders like Carl Jung, and I know there's many others who actually use that to represent the human psyche and to show that this is very real and very usable way to identify parts of who we are. So it's not just back in the Greeks and back in the ancient days. This is all applied even now.
Absolutely, and going forward, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, but Carl Jung is a great place to start. He did a lot of work looking at these archetypes. He identified 12 primary, and then he grouped those into three sets of four that represented the ego, the soul, and the self. But I think part of what I'd like to share about Carl Jung's work is giving us an understanding about where these archetypes reside and a little bit of a differentiation between a personal relationship to these archetypes and this bigger picture. So each of us, most of us are aware we have a conscious, an unconscious, and a superconscious self. So our conscious self is the memories of our current life, our experiences. That's our consciousness. The personal unconscious are memories that maybe we've forgotten or we've repressed them, could be from this lifetime or could be from previous incarnations, but they're not in our awareness. They reside in our subconscious. And then our superconscious is our higher self, our connection to the divine. So those three aspects of our personal. What Jung talked about and what he really spent a lot of time on is the collective unconscious. And this is something that records the memory of the collective, of the evolution of humankind from all time. And so it's not personal to an individual, but it belongs to all of us, and we contribute to it, each and every one of us, through our growing knowledge and memories. And we have that sometimes. For example, we were talking about movies. We watch a film, and so Star Wars, great example of archetypes within that movie. And it's maybe not in the setting that we've ever personally experienced, but we relate to this collective unconscious, these archetypes that we resonate with. We understand them even though we haven't experienced that particular thing.
Are you referring to, say, good versus evil in father figure, son, or what archetypes stand out for you in that movie, let's just say?
Well, there's the father-son, there's the sacrifice, there's the hero, there's the trickster in that also. There are these guardians that are the keepers of certain information, your Jedi elders, I forget what they call them, but Yoda, there are these wise ones amongst the common people. So there's a number of different archetypes in that.
I'll add one to that if I could, because it's interesting. We were talking before about my love of Hinduism. Of course, Hanuman is there, and Hanuman's a Hindu servant of the god, so an archetype of someone who's always of service. And I'm like, oh, Hanuman is the Chewbacca in Star Wars. I mean, I really went into like that, that servant, the strong, the loyal person, being, creature, human, whoever. But I realized when you said there's so many, you're right. You can look at the energy of someone who's of service to their god or to their loyal servant of somebody, and you see it play out in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm. And the key to the archetypes is to bring them into our awareness. They're kind of on the subconscious level, but once we become conscious of them, once we become aware of them, and integrate them as part of ourself, they provide for us these extraordinary qualities that we can embody to help us navigate our journey through life. Draw upon the courage or the wisdom or the creativity or the power that these archetypes represent for us.
When you say something like courage, is the archetype courage, or courage is the energy or the essence of what a particular archetype embodies?
It would be a trait of the archetype hero.
Got it. Okay.
Another besides Jung, Freud also really helped to kind of popularize, if you will, the idea of archetypes, bring it into our awareness is maybe a better way to express that. And his extensive work on dreams, said that we are all born with this innate ability to understand the archetypes, that we're kind of pre-programmed to look for these archetypes in our everyday lives because they serve as a framework for our understanding of who we are in the world.
Oh, interesting. I think what I'm going to do is have us take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask my question. As long as I can remember. You're listening to Zeta Global Radio. We will be back in a moment. I'm totally immersed in this archetype. I have to like stand back and go, okay, what do I need to tell her? Because this is so good. All right, we'll be back in a moment. Blessings, everyone. Lainie Sevante here, inviting you to the Mystical Magical World Tarot Playshop, happening October 27th through 28th on the beautiful setting of Green Planet Farm and Gardens on Pine Island here in Southwest Florida. I want you to experience, and I'm looking forward to it myself, a total immersion of learning, being, and embodying our divine archetype as shown in Tarot's major arcana. Discover the depth of who you truly are and step into its power. I myself can't wait for this. The event is being facilitated by Teressena and Martin Bakens, the incredible creators of the 5th Tarot deck, which I use myself when giving readings through intuitive wisdom. They are masterful, wise, and will help you bring forward the new you. Consider it a high vibrational take on Halloween, complete with costumes, props, and the feeling of really being a kid again. We could all use that, right? Well, there are limited spots available for this, so register now at the5thtarot.com, and I'll see you soon. Spiritual Communities Network invites you to their 7th year anniversary celebration of the mystical and magical date of 11/11 with their upcoming event Spirit Con, taking place this year on Pine Island at the beautiful setting of Green Planet Farm and Gardens. It's a day to connect, expand, and experience. Free to attend, enjoy a full day of local and renowned speakers sharing their wisdom of spirituality, mystical arts, and health and wellness. Enjoy readings and a variety of booths with many different products for enlightenment and well-being. Sponsored by Muscle Tuners International, Conscious Shift Magazine, the Holistic Chamber of Commerce of Southwest Florida, and our station here, Zeta Global Radio. For more information, please visit spiritualcommunitiesnetwork.com. We look forward to seeing you there. Trice Massage Therapy and Skincare is Southwest Florida's premier holistic and wellness spa to relax and rejuvenate your well-being. Founded by Lucille Trice, this enlightened haven located in Cape Coral offers a variety of massage therapies including Swedish, deep tissue, and trigger point massage. Trice offers detoxifying body wraps and facials using natural organic ingredients to pamper your skin and restore balance and health. Visit their Trice Massage Therapy and Skincare Facebook page or call 239-672-0526 and book your experience today. Mention ZGR and receive a complimentary ionic foot detox experience.
Hi, this is Bruce Lipton, and you're listening to Zeta Global Radio.
So I do remember my question. And speaking about what you said about this framework that we all are, there's already, X amount of archetypes. Can we continue to create new archetypes as we evolve? Are there new archetypes that haven't even been determined yet? Or there's X amount and those are them and that's it? Because I'm always the bust through the paradigm or, trendsetter. Like, aren't there new archetypes that we can create right here, right now?
Absolutely. And this is, if we could just hold that for just a little bit, because I think it's in order to explain that fully, it's relevant to talk a little bit more about kind of what has led us to it. But I would just answer it at this moment in saying absolutely, because we're in such a changing time.
Perfect. Yeah, you can answer it whenever you want in this whole interview.
Okay. So just coming back a little bit, one more thing that it feels relevant in order to answer Lainie's question is looking at this historical piece of understanding, and someone who really his life work was about this topic was Joseph Campbell.
Oh, sure.
Really looked at the comparative mythology of different traditions and religions and cultures and civilizations through time. And through his work, he brought forth this idea of the monomyth, the one myth. And it refers to the theory that all of the mythic narratives are really a variation of one great story. And it's the hero's journey, where the hero lives in the ordinary world, but they receive this call to adventure. And, I mean, as I'm saying this out loud, just kind of relate it to your own life and think about this. You're in this ordinary world, but all of a sudden you have this call, something is drawing you. And at first you're kind of reluctant. You kind of refuse the call, but then you're encouraged by someone to, yes, go for it. So you cross this threshold and enter the special world where things begin to change. And so you have in this arena, there's like tests and allies and maybe enemies or nemesis. You approach this innermost cave, crossing the next threshold where you endure this ordeal and you take possession of this reward that comes to you through going through this ordeal. And so on the way back to the ordinary world, you experience this kind of resurrection or transformation and return with this elixir, this gift, this treasure that will now benefit the ordinary world, something bigger than yourself. And so all of what Joseph Campbell was saying is all of these myths and stories throughout civilization are really about this broader picture of the triumph of the hero's journey, the triumph of the soul's journey. And that triumph, are the trump, the major arcana of the fifth tarot, tell this same story. From the Fool through to the universe are these archetypal energies of the soul's journey.
Powerful. Well, that certainly lends itself to the immersion, which of course we'll talk a little bit about later coming up here, about how to go on that journey and where on that journey we are. And of course you'll answer that question I want to know later about new archetypes on the planet. But when I was hearing you describe that, I thought, well, that, with my film background, I was thinking, well, that's how the makings of a good film. When you look at any of the Marvel films, or you look at Perseus, or, you could look at Spider-Man and Superman. There's so many that are embodying this story. And
to your point, Lainie, those are modern day archetypes.
So someone could say, I'd like to be like Spider-Man, or I'd like to be like Hanuman. It doesn't matter. And I think what is important is to share is that it also gives us, at least for me, my take on it, is that having a knowing of archetypes, ancient, current, mystical, or scientific, or psychological, it provides a sense of grounding that you can identify. Like you feel like you belong to a group. You feel like you belong to a sense of like, okay, I understand. It's a very nice identifier to have as a greater understanding of yourself, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's kind of like the saying, as within, so without. It gives us this sense of the collective, of the universal, of belonging as an individual to this bigger picture. And then the awareness comes that there is only one picture. We're all one. So this individual hero's journey is leading us back to this place of oneness. So it's, I think it's really a significant awareness to have in working with these archetypes. And to your point, how it does give a person a sense of groundedness of who they are, their place in the world, their place throughout time, their place in the cosmic understanding.
Well, in the spirit of our recent unfoldment for healing Mother Earth, let's take the archetype of the mother, or of Gaia, or of the earth, because I know that translates into so many ways that people go, oh, I get it. So maybe let's just use that as an example. It just ties in with our current celebration of the planet.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to use that opportunity to segue into the tarot, the major arcana card of the Empress. She is the embodiment of the Great Mother. She's the one who is the giver of life, the fertility aspect, the nurturer of life. She is abundance and creativity, and she represents the cycles of gestation and birth and life and death and renewal again for another rebirth. So that energy of depicted in the Empress, or represented, I should say, in the Empress, is this primordial archetype of the Great Mother, which, to your point, absolutely, Mother Gaia, and given names throughout different civilizations, in Egypt, would that be Nut, or who would that be as the, or Isis?
Well, first off, that's my archetype, so I fully identify with the Empress, and it's really a great way for people to understand in the spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric world why so many people take on a spiritual name, why so many people embody a name that is actually an archetype, because they identify more with who they are as that name than they do with the human birth name that they were given. Because I know many people who go by Gaia. That's their name. So it's really great for people to understand that when people change their names, because they are embracing their archetype, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm that now you got me thinking about my own spiritual name, Sevante, which I go by, and Sevante is really, now when I think about it, 3 archetypes. So Sevante, which I didn't even know, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before. Sevante, when I looked it up and I was, received an internal message, you are Sevante. Sevante, I looked it up, and believe it or not, it means worship in Sanskrit. And so now I'm identifying, well, I'm so devoted to spirit, and now I think why I'm so devoted to Hanuman. I see that connection. But the worship of service is also Seva. And so Sevante is a derivative, Seva is derivative of Sevante, and Savant, like a wisdom teacher. So I go by Sevante. Many people call me that, but those are 3 different archetypes rolled into one name.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
So it helps explain why people want to be called their name, or they want to be that, or if you're stepping into it or thinking about it. So I love a puzzle, and I love how everything's connecting, and I'm glad that you're showing that. Do you want to maybe give another example of another archetype that is universal and also related to tarot?
Sure, absolutely. Let's look at, for example, the man. In traditional decks, it's called the Hanged Man. In our 5th tarot deck, it's called the Cosmic Man. And the image depicts, traditionally, it's a person hanging upside down on a tree. In our deck, it's a person hanging upside down from the world itself by strands of DNA. But what you're showing is a reversal, a shift in perception. And it's sort of also a self-sacrificing energy, the sacrifice of the ego, of the known self, the world, the self we present to the world, to shift our perception into our spiritual self, our soul self, and who we truly are, understanding our place in the cosmos. So this reversal energy, this shift in perception, is an archetypal energy that occurs when we are on this journey of awareness, of becoming. And just a point of clarification, so as not to get confused also, these archetypes are not just, let me rephrase that. The archetypes describe but are not personality traits. They are, for example, somebody might be outgoing and somebody might be an introvert. There are different ways that people have of being, and that's more of a personality thing. An archetype is something that is universal. We all have this potent primordial energy within us as part of our journey through life, part of our remembrance of these energies.
Mm. When you say the word primordial, and you've said it a few times, explain that to people in case they don't even know what primordial is. It's a perfect in the pocket word, and let's explain that a little bit so people could really integrate why it fits so well in our conversation.
Well, what it means to me is, and I'm not sure that this is the accurate definition, but what it means to me is profoundly ancient and true. It's been there from the beginning of the beginning. It's just something that is so deeply rooted in the essence of humankind and in our consciousness that it's there since the beginning of creation, probably even before humankind. It's this primordial energy, this really potent creational understanding.
In the beginning, there was Adam and Eve and the primordial essence.
The primordial essence was created.
There you go. And that's exactly right. Is that archetype when you even look at the story or the whole concept of Adam and Eve, you can go and pull so many archetypes in that right there.
Absolutely. And if you, just because you brought it up, I wanted to mention Joseph Campbell, in his book, The Power of Myth, talks extensively about that. The Power of Myth and The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell are both exceptional in helping to understand the world of archetypes, the world of the hero's journey, the world of this mono myth, and how it is, underlies so much of our understanding. That would lead really well into what your question that you had asked earlier. I don't know if you have time before the break yet, or we want to come back to that after.
Let's come back to it. That's a perfect opening on our last segment. So we'll stop here. You're listening to Zeta Global Radio. We're so glad you're here with us today. Hope you are feeling a better sense so far, and we got more to go on what archetypes are all about. And we hope you share this with others. So, of course, we're on Zeta Continuum, which is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this, and you can always get all our shows ahead of time before they air on Sundays on our website, ZetaGlobalRadio.com, and on iTunes and SoundCloud and a million other places. So thank you for being here. We'll be back in a moment.
Muscle Tuners International is a proud sponsor of Music to Heal the Earth, a collection of songs encouraging planetary mindfulness, one song at a time. At MTI, we believe in impacting people in their health and wellness, one person at a time. Discover how to switch on your muscles before you begin your favorite exercise activity for greater results. Better yet, become a licensed muscle tuner specialist and learn our proprietary kinesiology techniques to help others get fitness and recovery results faster. We invite you November 4th and 6th to an Introduction to Muscle Tuning gathering to be held in Southwest Florida at Paradise Wellness and Event Center in Bonita Springs. For more information, please visit www.muscletuners.fit. Be strong, be confident, be tuned. The Holistic Chamber of Commerce in Southwest Florida now has chapters in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Naples. If you have a holistic business or practice and want to network with like-minded beings in the medical and healing arts, natural and eco-living, and spiritual communities, you're welcome to come to a meeting and see what we're all about. For more information, please visit www.holisticchamberofcommerce.com and select your nearest city. We look forward to seeing you soon. In the depth of a spiritual ceremony, the heartbeat of the drum and shaking of the rattle bring you closer to a heightened state of awareness within. Experience the richness of nature's spirit drums. They are expertly and lovingly handcrafted with an infusion of sacred animal spirit and healing energies. Hand-stitched rawhide rattles used in sound healing, energy clearings, and journey work are filled with the powerful vibration of crystals such as amethyst, citrine, jade, and garnet. Purchase yours today by visiting naturespiritdrums.com. Zeta Global Radio listeners enjoy a special 10% discount when entering ZETA at checkout. For our international listeners, please visit the website on how you may purchase Nature Spirit drums and rattles.
Okay, I get my question answered, and hopefully that question, sometimes when I ask the questions, most of the time when I ask the questions, I may already know them, sometimes I don't know them, but I feel that Spirit's tapping me on the shoulder to ask the questions on behalf of the collective oneness who may be listening, or that it may be out there of people wanting to know. And actually, Teressena, before you get to my question, I've been doing a lot of readings lately where the cosmic man has come up. And I always watch a pattern because I always realize that what's happening to one is happening to all, and there's a collective energy going on. So I will see, and I'm sure, or you tell me, but repeated cards over and over in a bulk, particularly if I'm doing multiple readings in a day, they're having the same cards. It's fascinating for me, and I at the same time realize how amazing when things are in the ethers that they're actually all not just for one person. But the cosmic man has been coming up a lot lately.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, because I think for Lainie's talking about doing tarot readings, and of course the archetypes. Many archetypes are included in the major arcana. So this cosmic man she's talking about, say Jane comes in for a reading and the cosmic man card comes up, and then Michael comes in for a reading and the cosmic man card comes up. This is what Lainie's talking about, seeing this card showing up repeatedly. So that card, that image of the cosmic man, has a message individually for the person Jane on her journey, for the person Michael on his journey. And at the same time, in the collective, this energy of the cosmic man has risen to the surface, asking these people, will you embody me? Because this energy is necessary and asked for on the planet at this moment in time. And the cosmic man particularly is about our evolution of awareness, our evolution of consciousness. And that's why we chose to have the person held by these strands of DNA, because what Lainie was asking about these new archetypes, the cosmic man is a perfect example of that. And when we created the fifth tarot, we made some departure from traditional things because they didn't seem to be resonating anymore. Most tarot is based on imagery from medieval and Renaissance times, from the 1500s, and we really don't necessarily relate to kings and queens and swords and spears, those kinds of things that were in people's psyche at that moment in time. So we did change some names and positioned some things and expanded some things within the fifth tarot. But as I was preparing for this workshop, this weekend workshop, this immersion into the tarot, where we actually are going to step into the cards with costumes and props and really feel the energy of these archetypes, it really became aware to me that that new archetypes are calling to come forth. And the beautiful part is that in the past, these archetypes were deep in our subconscious. Right now, we are in a time of transition. We are basically moving from dark ages into another renaissance. We're in this between time. And we are the ones who are able to choose what this next age is going to be, to dream this world into being. And so when we can create archetypes that people can work with consciously to represent this vision of a whole and healed world, a vision where humankind are in, a place of more acceptance and loving compassion, kindness, we can create archetypes that will assist people to embody these energies going forward.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you tapped on the subject I wanted to bring up next, which of course is this immersion. It is happening here October 27th and 28th, 2 full days of being with Teressena, who's flying in from California, by the way, and we'll be here on Pine Island in Bokeelia at Green Planet Farm and Gardens, where we've done a number of workshops through the year so far with both she and her husband, Martin Bakens. And there's a few spaces left, but do you want to just talk about a little bit more of what they can expect that weekend if people who are hearing this want to sign up in the next couple weeks and be part of this wonderful gathering, this really, really sacred gathering?
Sure, absolutely. It will, I promise you, just be a magical, very insightful, deeply profound experience that occurs in a very fun way. And so tarot cards, when you do a tarot reading, it provides insight and information for you to be able to make decisions going forward on your path. When we're doing a tarot reading, though, you're looking at the cards, you're looking at the images, and it evokes something in you. In this weekend, what you have the opportunity to is actually become the cards, to step into the magician what does it feel like to really hold that power, that staff, the ability to manifest with the energy of the magician. You can step into the shadow card. What does it feel like to be in that place of the unknown, what's hidden in the shadows? How can I bring that into the light? And by embodying these archetypes, it just really integrates the wisdom and the power and the essence of these archetypes, integrates it on a much more cellular level, and allows it to bring forth the innate wisdom and knowing that resides within you about these archetypes, as opposed to reading in a book, this is what this archetype means. And so it's very fun to, enter into the costumes. And then we're also going to be doing readings. So maybe we draw 3 cards, and 3 different people will dress up as these archetypes, and the person will be able to ask them questions, and they will be able to offer information back. So it's a very experiential way of understanding the esoteric wisdom that is contained within the major arcana. Arcana, the word arcana means secret, hidden wisdom, hidden knowledge. This is a way to intuitively bring it forward and to have it resonate within your very beingness. So that part of the workshop will be really fun. And then we are going to explore new archetypes. I've created some that we are going to look at, but the participants will have the opportunity themselves to create new archetypes. And so just to give you an example of one of those, if we look at our world today, that what exists visibly that we see, that didn't exist, a few years back in our visible, is we see, many people looking for ways to express who they are on the outside. So you'll see, a lot more tattoos, piercings, hair different colors, things on the outward experience. What that's really representing, I'm calling it the expressionist. People are wishing to really express the truth of who they are. So what this archetype represents is really accessing the innermost part of yourself, that your outward expression and your inward expression matches, that you are able to give voice, give expression to that truth of who you are in a conscious way. And you'll see, that is more relevant to what we see today than the times of knights and pages and things of that nature.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, you touched on something. I just love how intuitive we are together, because I had made a mental note earlier to mention something about the shadow when you were brought up Star Wars, thinking of Darth Vader and how these, what can be perceived in our mind as a negative or a dark or incongruent energy or archetype, are not necessarily bad. They are actually blessings to me, and I see this so much in the readings of how to embrace that shadow, like you mentioned, and how to embrace the darkness as a lesson, as a learning, as a part of us that are providing us greater awareness of who we are or about something or somebody else. So it's not necessarily bad when it comes up in reading. It's not necessarily bad as an archetype either. You see it always as in, there's always the villain in the movies, but those villains either have an awareness or they bring out something in you that you need to know further about yourself or humanity. So I just wanted to touch on that because you brought it around where I wanted to go and kind of end it with on a positive note about something that may not be positive.
Yeah, absolutely. In traditional tarot decks, that card was called the devil. And again, that conjures up a more negative interpretation or judgmental, good, bad kind of a thing.
Right. Distinctly good or bad, right?
Yeah. And so we renamed that card the shadow. And the shadow is just that, what lies hidden in the shadow, what needs to be brought out into the light. And so in the example of Star Wars, Darth Vader is the nemesis. But what Darth Vader does is Luke Skywalker recognizes the Darth Vader within himself. It's an integration piece for the hero to recognize, I have this full spectrum within me of dark to light. Where do I choose to put my intention? Where am I acting from? How can I reconcile this within myself? And Mother Teresa is a good example. Sometimes someone asked her one time why she did the work she did, and her response was because she recognized the Hitler within herself. And so again, this idea of the shadow is just looking at looking at the baser aspects of ourselves and reconciling it. But sometimes what lies hidden in the shadow is our light, is our gifts, and our fear to step into them, to embrace them, to bring them forward into the light, to step fully into the light with the truth of who we are instead of remaining hidden in the shadows. So again, it's not necessarily a good, bad, it's just what is hidden, what needs to be reconciled, what needs to be honored, acknowledged.
Wonderful. Well, more to be revealed if you come to the Immersion Playshop for Tarot Archetype Awakening here in just a couple weeks, October 27th through 28th. If you want to learn more about this wonderful experience that we'll be having, Zeta Global Radio is happy to sponsor. I'll be there with Teressena. It'll be, let's see, all the information is on thefifthtarot.com. And you can still register. Is that the best way to register there, Teressena?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, great. And any other events or workshops or anything else that you have going on, well, besides the immersion one? I know you always are doing something somewhere with you and Martin.
Well, this coming weekend, if anyone is listening in Canada, we'll be doing a gathering called the Ancestors of Tomorrow. That's happening in the Toronto area, and then also Introduction to Tarot that's happening as well, and you can find that information on the website, The Fifth Tarot, as well.
Great. What part of Canada?
In the Toronto area.
Toronto. Okay. Great.
And then one thing I would just put out there, if anyone's interested, and you can find out more information on our website, Beacons of Love, is this April we will be taking a group for a Sacred Mayan journey. We have been working for the past 20 years, I guess, with the Mayan master teacher, Miguel Angel Vergara, and he will be with us for part of the journey. It's a 14-day journey to really connect with the wisdom, the Atlantean wisdom through the Maya, and remembering, again, the relevance of what we are here in this lifetime to co-create as we go forward. And just one thing coming back to these new archetypes and this weekend immersion, it's sort of, I feel it's time for us as a species, as humankind, to kind of leave behind some outmoded ideologies that have caused strife and division and inequities, and to really rise to this new level of understanding to create a more tolerant and compassionate consciousness. And I know Lainie and Howard are very much doing that in what they're bringing forth with Music to Heal the Earth, and this is all a part of it. All of us are connecting. This is, again, a deeply collective subconscious that's rising into the consciousness of being guardians and caregivers of humankind and of the planet. And so we can do this in many different ways. And again, coming back to what are archetypes, how do they express themselves? Through music, through art, through tarot, through film, through literature, this human spirit's desire to evolve into the best that we can be.
And so it is. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you live in Southwest Florida in a few weeks. And for all of you all over the world who want to get more in touch with Teressena and the work that she's doing with her husband Martin, please go to beaconsoflove.com or thefifthtarot.com and see all the different things she mentioned today. We wish you all a blessed week. If you feel called to join us in Florida, we'll see you at the end of this month. Consider it a very high vibrational, enlightened way to celebrate Halloween with our dress-up time. So see you there. Thank you, Teressena. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Lainie, and thank you to everyone for listening in. Peace, love, and joy.
Here you go. Talk to you all next week.